Commodore VIC-20 is often neglected when talking about the bigger players like IBMs and Apples of the era. VIC-20 was released in 1980, but its story begins in 1977. While brainstorming the design of this little machine has only just begun, Commodore released its newest child, which also happens to be my absolute favorite machine from the 70s. Commodore PET, or Personal Electronic Translator, hit the market in January of 1977. While all this was happening, another company finished work on the newest creation of their own. MOS Technologies released the now renowned 6560 chip. This chip was also known as the Video Interface Chip, or VIC for short. It was a product intended for companies producing everything that had a screen and was able to display text. So pretty much everything from arcade machines to hospital monitors. However, it quickly became clear that there aren't many customers for it. In the early months of 1980, head of Commodore Jack Tramiel was on a hunt for a small and easy-to-produce computer, which could be ready for release by the end of the year, when a tech convention called CES was scheduled for. At this point, Tramiel has only had a vision of a small computer, and so the prototyping began. One of the prototypes, or rather a little homebrew project of one of the technicians, attracted some attention. It was a prototype initially codenamed Micro PET. As soon as Jack Tramiel saw this small yet very capable machine, he immediately decided that this will be the next project the company will focus on, and so the work began. Commodore focused on producing a fully functional computer before the CES.
Why buy just a video game from Atari or any television? Invest in the wonder computer of the 1980s for under $300, the Commodore VIC-20. Unlike games, it has a real computer keyboard. With the Commodore VIC-20, the whole family can learn computing at home. Plays great games, too. Under $300, the wonder computer of the 1980s, the Commodore VIC-20.
This is how, from a garage project based on a VIC-6560 chip, the Commodore VIC-20 was born. The first part of the name for this little computer comes of course from the name of the chip used in its production. But the number 20 to this day is a cause for many heated arguments among lovers of old computers. Before it officially became known as the VIC-20, Commodore internally tried a few code names for it. There was the Spirit, which turned out to be absolutely unacceptable on Japanese market, and then there was the infamous Vixen, which in German sounds almost like pleasuring oneself, and so for obvious reasons this name was also rejected. It is clear at the first glance that my VIC-20 saw better days. I think this is the most delicate way of describing what the previous owner did to it. I don't know if I can call it a steal, but the system cost me less than £20, or around $26, so if it just turns on, it is already worth its price. I think this old machine, by what it has gone through so far, deserves a decent clean and a renovation. I really hope you'll stay with me until the end of this adventure. The keyboard will need some attention, but we'll get back to it a little later. Let's start from unscrewing the case. As far as I remember, there are just these 3 screws and the whole case should open. I can see that someone has already tried to get inside this computer and of course lost one of the screws. This isn't really a big deal though, and almost all of my other computers were missing a few screws here and there when I bought them. As you can see, the warranty is also unfortunately no longer valid. What a shame. There are no screws at the back of the case, but there are plastic hooks, and after separating the front, the whole computer should open up. Here are the guts of the famous Commodore VIC-20 in all the dusty magnificence. As expected, we have a lot of dust here, but I must say that I have seen computers in a much worse condition, so there is a good chance that the motherboard is actually working properly. The capacitors don't look swollen or damaged, but I think I will have to replace them all anyway. It's always a good practice to recap these old machines. After so many years, it's really hard to trust these old capacitors that they won't explode when plugged into the power for the first time in ages. I'm guessing you are wondering, where is the star of the show? Where is the famous MOS 6560 chip? Well, in this version of VIC-20 we have the 6561 chip instead, which is basically just a newer version of the original chip. The heart of this computer is under this metal shield. Let's see if everything looks good underneath there. One thing that caught my eye immediately after opening the case is the fact that Commodore permanently mounted all components instead of using sockets such as these. Sockets allow for very easy and quick replacement in case of a fault of one of the chips. If you are about to replace any of the chips on your old computers, I would always advise to use these sockets. It will make your life much easier. The motherboard looks reasonably good, so let's look at the keyboard. I'll unplug it from its port and remove the screws that secure it to the top cover. I don't think I will connect this computer to power until I finish working on it, or at least until I make sure that it's safe to turn on. As you can see, the keyboard isn't exactly in a great shape, and a few keys need some attention, or possibly even replacing. Fortunately, I do have a fully functional keyboard, which I can use as a replacement in case the original doesn't work. What worries me are these two keys, because they do stand out more than the others. Let's see what kind of wonderful bodge is underneath them. It seems that both buttons were damaged at some point and then really badly repaired. This metal rod is especially a bad sign, because it means that someone had the great idea to drill into this keyboard, which of course makes it quite difficult to restore the keyboard to its original state. Replacing the keyboard with a fully functional one will most likely be the best bet here, as well as a faster solution. The new keyboard also needs some attention though. Since I decided to replace the old damaged one with it, I'm going to clean it and make it ready for installation. I'll remove all the keys and see what it looks like underneath. Usually there is a huge amount of food, hair and dust bunnies, so it's always a good idea to clean every old keyboard you are working on. I must admit that it's not as bad as I expected, but either way this computer will need some attention. Let's spend some time on cleaning the other components to prepare them for the next steps of the renovation. When cleaning any motherboard, be sure not to press too hard on it, especially around the capacitors. Old caps are likely to explode, and if the previous owner did not lie, these capacitors are over 25 years old. A thorough clean of the motherboard will also help us find any other potential problems. So far so good. I can't see any defects or problems here. If you manage to notice something I've missed, do let me know in the comments below and I'll make sure to look into it in the next episode. Enough dusting. Let's take care of the computer case, which is by far in the worst condition out of all parts so far. The computer case of the Commodore VIC-20 is fully plastic. This is very helpful in renovating because we don't have to worry too much about damaging it during washing. There are of course better and worse ways of cleaning old plastic, but washing it is not really harmful, so there's nothing to worry about here. I've got to say that the case looks much better now. It seems to me that it actually brightened a little bit, which is always a plus. I wonder whether to retrobrite the plastics of this computer. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below if you want to see the retrobriting process, and which way of doing it you think works best. I think that's it for today. In the next episode, I'm going to recap the whole motherboard and check if the computer is functional. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this type of restorations, and whether you have already managed to bring back to life any retro treasures. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. I hope to see you in the next episode. Take care.